Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I hope you had a chance to do some networking during the break. And also, after this session, there will be another break, and you'll be put back into the tables that you were when you came into this session. My name is Carrie Nicotin, and I'll be moderating this session, and we'll be discussing women in venture finance. Some of the topics that we will be discussing are the power and impact of women and entrepreneurs, when investments are made, what matters most, why the needle for investing in women owners and founders and CEOs hasn't moved much in the last decade. What should some women entrepreneurs do to create credibility? And if we have time, we'll cover the impact of COVID on investment decisions on this panel. So I would like to bring my panel to the stage and welcome Namrata Banerjee, who is the director of the Venture Bridge for Carnegie Mellon, and it's also an accelerator. Olivia Owens from I Fund Women and I Fund Women of Color. Vandana Talani of Convana, which is a investment bank boutique group, and Parna Sarka Bazu, who is the founder of Brand and Buzz Marketing. So welcome, ladies. If you'd like to know more information about any of these women, that would be on the website, siccmonterey.com. So feel free to do that. And you can also reach out to them on LinkedIn because I believe they're all over there. So thank you, ladies, for joining me on this panel. And I would also like to tell the audience that they can leave comments in the chat, or they can put emojis up to let the panelists know how they're doing, if you'd like to do that. So I think we're ready to go, ladies. You ready? Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the impact of women entrepreneurs and investors, and what that looks like to each of you. So Olivia, can we start with you?
Sure, happy to jump in. So to give a little bit more of a background on the work that I do at I Fund Women, we're focused on supporting entrepreneurs in the early stage of their businesses, oftentimes securing that first round of capital. And I think in this conversation, it's important to note that the majority of the new businesses being started in this country every day are by women. And so getting that first round of capital, that first investment to be able to prove out demand for your concept before you invest in supply, avoid going into debt funding the earliest stages of your startup, having funding solutions at that stage is what's going to help women-owned businesses get to those later stages of capital. And I think that one of the points that I always like to talk about, while women only receive 2.3% of the VC dollars invested, only 1% of businesses, regardless of the gender of the founder, are raising venture capital. And so having a larger conversation around what does access to capital look like, what are the different types of funding options, and when should founders be using them, has to be a part of this conversation.
All right, thank you. Namrata, can you go from the investor perspective on this? Because it's just not the founders that we're speaking of, or the entrepreneurs.
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everyone. Excited to be here. As Carrie mentioned, I'm an investor. I work with pre-seed, seed stage companies, both at Carnegie Mellon and outside of them. Serve as venture partner with Republic, which many of you might know. It's a fantastic platform to raise money from investors and also, increase your product sales and brand recognition. Come from the operator side. I've started many companies. Some survived, some failed. A lot of learning, and it's a joy. It's a joy to be with this group, to work with founders every day. I believe, from the investment point of view, the way I see power of women, and it's been, well documented that who is in the decision-making group dictates what decision is made. And in this case, we are talking about allocation of capital. So the way I look at it is that, there are many reasons for why we need more women allocating capital. But the main reason that I think of quite a few times when I was a founder is that it is less intimidating to approach a person who looks like you, who talks like you, and who has thought like you. So when I think of investment, when I talk to a women founder, I've been in their shoes. I understand what they're trying to say, and they may look different and say things differently, but ultimately, we are all trying to run a business. So that's what I would want to contribute here, Carrie. I would love to connect with anyone who is looking for funding and help you out. And Olivia just mentioned the same thing. So, yeah.
So Namarata, everybody who's in this session, all the people on here will probably be in contact with you. So, all right, Parna, if you could take it from your perspective, because you are actually on the marketing and kind of the storytelling side of this, and that's the most relevant piece of it. Because if we can't really express the things we need to, we're not going to get very far, whether it's raising capital, finding good partners, or any of those things. So thank you.
Right. Well, thanks, Carrie. So yes, our consulting firm focuses on really building, humanizing, and amplifying the market presence of tech pioneers and women founders, and we essentially help build their market credibility. When I started my corporate career at iRobot, just to give a quick background as to how I got here, I was very fortunate to be part of an incredibly successful IPO. And since then, I worked with a host of tech companies from SaaS and artificial intelligence to robotics and storage. Fortunate to be part of 6 companies that got acquired, and I helped 3 companies with their fundraising, from 75 million to crowdsourcing, which we raised the money in 5 days. So I'm very psyched about that. I think my view also is that when we talk about women empowerment, yes, we absolutely need the investors, especially the women investors, investing in women. But I also feel that the woman should also be part of a corporate culture, whether it's management, whether it's your product team, because they bring a very different perspective to, whether it's product design or management. We've seen so many stats, even like the McKinsey stat, I think, that talks about when you have a multi-gender executive team, your EBIT is up by like 21, more than 20%. So I am a big believer of making sure that women are part of, the investment community, the entrepreneur community, as well as teams, especially when they're designing or innovating products.
Thank you, Parna. And I like that you included the women in the whole cycle of how you do business and how you build it, because we tend to forget that. We think, if we can just get a female CEO or just a female funder, then we've kind of checked that box, which is actually not true. So thank you for that. Next, sure. Bandana, you have a perspective from VC, family offices, and investment banking. So I'm very interested to hear what you have to say about this.
Yeah, so, it's really, really important that we need to consider a plethora of factors when making investment decisions. Firstly, it is important to have a strong team. When venture capital investors are doing due diligence, the background of the CEOs, CTOs, CFOs, and founders becomes of utmost importance to them because they are primary drivers of success in the business. Secondly, they should have a certain level of market validation for their product or service. Their financial models, should indicate a promising future. Lastly, we as investors need to see how the company fits into our investment portfolio, whether it's creating an, appropriate mix of investments, diversifying it, and leading it to effective, risk management. And I believe that a lot of inherent biases come into play, which hinder the process of investments and funding for women founders and entrepreneurs. Nearly 90% of these investment decision makers are men, and about 86% of their funds go into all male teams. there's also, a lack of confidence that investors have in the ability of women to run businesses. In fact, Harvard Business Review has an article on this, which proved that through a study that even when men and women gave the same pitch to investors, the investors tend to prefer the businesses run by men over women. Therefore, the ecosystem needs to change. It needs to have a certain percentage of funds set aside for female founders, just so that these selection biases can be reduced. So this is my small take on it. Yeah.
Appreciate that. And I like all the stats that you had there. It's like, it kind of brings it right to the forefront of, wow, this is a huge problem and how do we solve it, kind of thing. So this kind of leads into our next topic, and that is when investing, what really matters. And this is more on an individual take. And it doesn't matter whether you're just investing in your own personal portfolio or investing in companies or helping build companies for investment. So how about Parna, you go first.
Sure. So I'm going to come at it from two perspectives, if I could. The first is, whether you're looking for VC funding or you're entering a new market, you have to stand out. That's a must. It's not optional, because there's so many people who are looking for funding. As an entrepreneur, I believe that you have to be seen, you have to be heard, and you have to have market credibility, especially if you are a first-time founder. But it's also very difficult for the founders to do that because they have to focus on building the company, building the product. So how do you do that? The second I would say is entrepreneurs get a lot of advice. How to create your pitch deck, how long should be, what should it have, how should you talk? But in reality, at least the entrepreneurs that I primarily work with, they're engineers at heart. They are very good, they're very innovative, they're very good at designing their products, but they don't have the skill set. And this is kind of something that I see all the time. So what I would suggest is that as an entrepreneur, you hear all the things that you have to do, but my suggestion is that you should consider hiring the right person with the right expertise to build your digital presence, to build your market credibility, help you with your corporate positioning or the product positioning, because those are really hard to do. So in short, do it right the first time and let the experts make you the rock stars while you build your product or your company.
Thank you, Parna. And yeah, that is the problem. You have high-tech people or tech savvy or medical savvy or fintech savvy, but they really don't know how to put a story together. So that's why we need people like you. Okay, Namrata, how about you? What matters when you're making the investment?
Yeah, for me, what matters is the founder herself or himself. And what I look there is just, does the person has subject matter expertise in what they're developing, or do they have an expert on their advisory board who knows the vertical very very well. I also look for flexibility in the founder. This is like, all of this is hard, right? Like just the fact that you decided to do a startup and let go of a well-paying job is hard enough. And so there's going to be so many bumps, and I really do look for like the flexibility in the founder. On the side of the product and the thinking, really, I work at the pre-seed stage and the seed stage. And at that time, you're still figuring out the product market fit. So I always look for like, what's the differentiation here, right? Like it could be in the way you are handling the product. It could be in the way you're innovating on the revenue model. It could be in the way that the product is being delivered, like whatever it is, but there needs to be some differentiation. And then the third thing I look for is go to market, right? Like you have to place this out there. And I think the panelists just mentioned the same thing, right? Like you have to put it out there. You have to position yourself, your brand, your product. So there needs to be like, especially on the B2B end, like sales and distribution, how you're going to go about it. And then focus, finally, right? Like you have to, there's so many ways on the point of advice. You get so much advice. So you have to like filter out that advice, figure out what you can do, what you can and cannot do, be very clear. I say this very often to founders: fire your advisors who are absolutely unhelpful, right? Like there is no reason to have like a giant deck of advisors, right? So figure out where you're going with it, where your differentiation is, what your sales distribution is, and focus on something that actually works, that gets you the money, and that gives you the confidence to keep going.
I agree with you on that one. We should fire our advisors from time to time. We need to really see what their impact levels are. So for sure, that's a fact. Okay, and so a lot of people will probably fire me after this. I don't know. Okay, Vandana, how about you giving some wisdom to this?
Yeah, Carrie, so I totally agree with a lot of things the other esteemed panelist has said. Being in Jakarta and Singapore for 15 years, running my own family office fund, and then coming back to India and, setting up my own investment bank and seeing a lot of companies, I really, advise entrepreneurs to have a complementary team. It's very, very important to have a CFO, CTO, a marketing team that complements, an operations team that complements each other. That will help you get the investments very fast. Also, many times entrepreneurs don't reach out to the right kind of investors. They have not checked the websites properly. They are, if it's a food entrepreneur, they are reaching to a technology, fund. So I think it's very important to have an advisor on board, the right kind of investment bankers who have the right kind of relationships with these funds, so that they don't have a backfall over and over again. Other than that, because investors don't spend more than 90 seconds on a deck, it's very important to have your pitch deck made professionally. Not only that, have a video pitch deck in order. It gives a better feel to the investors as to what exactly you are looking for. So I think I would look into these factors. Also, if the founder has the drive, is the founder humble enough to pivot? Humble doesn't mean being submissive. Humble means that being grounded and being able to take wise decisions, with a positive mindset and moving in the right direction. And there are many founders that they don't know how to manage their money. Like if you remember the other day, I did mention that there were two founders. One bought a car with investments and the other one treated cancer. So I think if you cannot manage your own money, have a CFO on board that will help you manage the money. So after you get the investments, which is also the hard-earned money of the investor, you know how to manage it and how to run the show in an appropriate manner. So I think that would be, my suggestions.
I appreciate that. And that's a lot of good wisdom and advice, in building a team and, what an investor looks for. So Olivia, you're up.
Yeah, I think an underlying theme in all of the advice my fellow panelists have shared is just an ability to anticipate the questions you're going to receive and already have the answers. So even if we offer grants on iFund Women, and so if you're applying to a grant program and the grant is a $25,000 grant, and in your grant application, you're saying, I need $100K to get my business off the ground, that's expecting the person who's looking at the grant to think about, well, how could she use this 25K if she needs 100K? Do the work in advance. It's like, I need 100K, but 25K will allow me to do X, Y, Z. Or let's say you have a business that requires in-person interaction. A question you're immediately going to get is, well, what are you planning for in the pandemic if we have to shut down again? I think that ability to anticipate the questions that people are going to ask and have the answer, that's what makes a founder stick out than the one who hasn't thought through those things already.
I agree with that, because if you don't have the answers, then maybe you don't know what you're doing, possibly so, or you don't have all the information that you actually need before you present to try and get money. All right, so we're going to talk about why the needle hasn't really moved much in investing in women founders, CEOs, and co-founders. So how about Olivia, you just start here too.
Sure. I think it goes back to part of what I talked about in the first question, the reality that many women-owned businesses are in.
Olivia, you're breaking
and
up.
the majority of new businesses being started.
Connections.
The reality is.
Yeah, your connection's
Got it. Am I
spotty. I think you're okay now.
Let's see. If you want to jump to somebody else and come back.
All right. Parna, how about you answer this now? What are your thoughts on the needle not moving much? Why can't we get the money? The men can get.
Well, I think let me start with, the talk of diversity and supporting women founders and women in tech is not new. It comes and goes. It's like a wave. However, and I think there was a stat one of you may have mentioned, but there's like over 114% more women entrepreneurs in the US today than there was like about 20 years ago. But now is probably the best time to be a woman, especially a woman of color. And I don't know if you guys are seeing this in the industry, but people want to hire you. They want to invest in you. It's an amazing place to be. And so I think we should take a step back and really celebrate this win that we've come a long way. And I think all of us in this panel, we've been doing our part in supporting women and investing in women, making sure that we have diversity in organizations, so on and so forth. But I also feel that moving forward, that we need more people of power, or more people who have a bigger influence in the industry to help move that needle, to drive change and make an impact. So some of the examples that I think of when I think about, who's helping move the needle. Think about the CEO of NASDAQ, like Adina Friedman. She's made, mandatory that all of the 3,000 plus companies that's listed on NASDAQ must have a woman on their board. Or there's Senator Jackson, who is talking about, or I think that was the first bill that was passed, that all public companies in California should have a woman on the board. But we also have male allies, and we need more of those, like the CEO of Salesforce. He was one of the first companies where, they narrowed the gender gap after a woman executive brought it to his attention that, there's a big pay gap within Salesforce. So I feel that similarly, if all of us can, in addition to what we are all doing, find the influencers, find the people who can help move the needle, do more of. So that's what I would lobby for, so that we get more women entrepreneurs, so we can support more women entrepreneurs. And obviously, we look to the investors to help us get there.
Thank you. Wow, that's really good. And it looks like some people are getting behind us, so we might get there. So Vandana, can you go next?
Yeah, surely. I strongly believe that like I'm repeating again, that a lot of inherent biases come into play which hinder the process of investments and funding for women founders and entrepreneurs. They are not considered business savvy. If they have been married and they have kids, they think that it's a setback. They cannot be on decision-making boards. I have seen a lot of funds where, women are not making the decisions. They are not allowed to manage the money. So I think nearly 90% of these investment decision makers are men, and about 86% of their funds go into all male teams. There's also a lack of confidence that investors have in the ability of women to, run businesses. And, in fact, Harvard Business Review also has an article which proved through a study that even when men and women gave same pitch to investors, the investors tended to prefer the businesses run by men over women. So therefore, the ecosystem needs to change, and it needs to have a certain percentage of funds set aside for, female founders, and biases need to be reduced that way. We as women need to open more doors for other women, give them more opportunities, identify the right kind of skills and talents. Generally, what happens is that, if we are working with a lot of women in the corporate, or if we are working in the corporate industry, nobody tells us what our skills are, and this happens with many women. They don't know what their skills are, and hence they lag behind until they realize that, oh, this is my skill and I'm able to do this. So I think a lot needs to change in terms of educating people about the skill set that the women have. They can manage money, they can be good CFOs, they can come in the finance industries, there can be unconventional things. And I think, a diversified startup or a company will get funded more easily, than a company that is not focusing on these factors. So I think we all need to focus here as funds, as startups, that we need to open more doors for women, and believe in that they can manage the money and they can make a lot of decisions, they can outstand, and they can be better in many ways. And also the men should think of giving more opportunities to women rather than just giving more opportunities to men. That's what I feel.
I think this whole panel agrees with you. And I think we all agree with you on that. Yes, give women more of the important.
Carrie, can I just jump in for 1 second? I know it's out of turn.
Absolutely.
Sure. I just wanted to kind of add to what Vandana just said about the home, the woman having to take care of stuff at the house. Look at the crisis that we were in last December, when over 1 million women left the workforce because they couldn't manage working from home, taking care of kids and all of that. So I think, I just wanted to kind of remind the esteemed audience that, yes, we definitely need the help, because we just proved that point of what happens when women don't get the support.
Thank you. That's good information too. Okay, Namarata, it's your turn. Why has that needle not moved?
Oh my goodness. More women at the table, like more women as decision makers. And I think like other panelists just mentioned everything that I would have. So more women at the table. Like I'll just quote a study that McKinsey did on that women control 1/3 of US household assets. So that's $10 trillion. And that is supposed to go up to like $30 trillion. What that means is that people who are like buying the products, right? Like more women are control of finances, or are increasingly more in control of finances at home. And so in terms of like getting more women at the decision table, educating, so like career girls, I mean, that's just amazing, right? Like educating at that level, teaching girls about like how finance works, that you could be entrepreneurs, that you could be bankers, right? Like, so the more we can educate and the more we can do the foundational work, that has a downstream impact. So like I don't really have anything other than that to add.
If I could add something,
yeah, sure.
So what also happens is education begins from home. From the beginning, we are told that pink is for girls and blue is for boys, soccer is for boys, and dolls is for girls. So I think that conditioning also needs to change. It has, each and every individual needs to be treated as a human. And no pink, blue, and soccer, this, that, I think that also causes the difference that, these things are, the cooking is only meant for women, taking care of the houses, it has to be a mutual thing. So I think that's the point that I wanted to highlight it. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
No, that's fine. I think in summarizing it, it kind of goes to on the merits, right? Who am I and what am I capable of? But allowing, and I hate to say that word, but allowing a woman into that inner circle to kind of prove that point, to make her mark, so that people can see that, yeah, she's highly capable, she's very knowledgeable, she's a great leader, she has all the skills, she's a good bet. But getting to that point is super hard, and I think that that's where good marketing and good storytelling happen. So I'm really glad that Parn is on this panel to kind of give that lean to it. So All right. It looks like we're going to talk a little bit about the impact of COVID on investment decisions on an individual basis for each of you. And Namrata, can you go first?
Yeah, so COVID has been amazing for some entrepreneur and absolutely devastating for others, right? So I believe that for women who are just starting out, pre-COVID, you could go to these events, meet interesting folks, have a conversation, and that's how actually I met Carrie, right? So like that has just gone, and so if you're just starting out in the last year, it's been quite hard. On the other end, if you were already like developing something and you were looking for investors and you're looking for customers, given that we all went virtual, it no longer really mattered where we were located. And so everyone was interested in talking to you, and it was much more efficient. So to me, these are like two different spectrums of what COVID has done to entrepreneurs. I am hoping that, like this, all of us have learned something from this. For me personally, it's been wild with so many investments that I have done on the angel side, and then through the programs that I work with. There's been a lot going on, but yeah, I'm hoping that things improve for everybody whoever suffered through COVID as well. And some verticals like travel, we had some founders working on travel that was just very bad.
Right. Olivia?
Spot on with Namrata. I think that on the one end, it was devastating, and we saw entrepreneurs turning to our platform very, very quickly to raise capital to keep their businesses up and running and get some money flowing in quickly. I think on the other side, we've seen a lot of innovation come out of it as well, an opportunity. And I think earlier on we talked about how important it is to have that ability to pivot as a founder. And so I think as we continue to see what the ongoing impact of the pandemic is on our society, on our economy, I think founders need to be looking at opportunity moments in the space where they're trying to problem solve and drive impact. And ideally, that'll get them to the investors who are looking in a similar space and be able to make some deals happen.
So did you see, how big an uptick did you see in people trying to get on your platform to do raises?
Massive. It was unbelievable to see, but luckily we've been at this game for 5 years. We had all the education and tools and resources. We made them free every day, accessible as possible. And so it was very, very special to be a support system there. And then we also were able to get out some grants pretty quickly as well to entrepreneurs for founders who needed to get their outdoor spaces for their restaurants built, and just small things like that cost money to keep the doors open and everything running. So it's ongoing. The impact is ongoing, but we continue to be a tool that provides fast access to capital.
Wow, that's great. Thank you. Vandana, how about the COVID and the impact? And I know for me, my mailbox has been full of all kinds of business plans and pitch decks and stuff since this thing happened. So it was an uptick for me for sure. Okay, go ahead.
I think for me, pandemic came as a blessing because I was able to sit on one chair and close several deals in 2020. Not only that, I learned the value of going digital all throughout, going to platforms like Air Meet, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, connecting with people globally. In fact, I gave 160 talks all over the world. I joined VCTV at that time. I educated a lot of women to enhance their LinkedIn, to enhance their website, and go digital all throughout. So it's like, when demonetization happened in India, many people didn't know how to use the digital payment method. And slowly, all over India, people learned, including the vegetable vendor, the taxi drivers, they learned the need to be progressive and proactive. Similarly, when the pandemic hit us, many of us didn't know how to use platforms like Zoom, AirMeet, StreamYard, and when we learned the value of these platforms and to connect globally with people like yourself and Parna and Namrata and all the others all over the globe, we realized that we can actually do a lot of work. And in a day I could do 10 to 15 meetings where I was only able to do 3 or 4 when I was going from office to office and other places to meeting investors. So I think, I did a lot of work throughout the pandemic, and now also I'm doing a lot of work. It's only because the pandemic helped me understand the digital technology and the importance of going digital all throughout. Learning different, I also learned something about AI technology and robotics that helped me, develop a lot of technology for my startups as well. So, we did a lot of fundraising. We helped people with documentation. So, I think it's really done well for us.
So a bad thing with good outcomes is kind of interesting, especially in a startup, right?
Yeah.
So Parna, can you give some wisdom on this topic?
So I think, like all of you have said, we've been, despite the really bad situation, and so many lives lost during the pandemic, I think we are some of the lucky fews where we are still sitting here telling our story. Like you, our business just grew tremendously during COVID. And I think one of the reason was we had to pivot as a consulting firm to see, what is it that we can do right away. So because the world was digital, it really made it extremely easy for us to, integrate, collaborate, partner with different organizations, create events for our clients so that they don't go dark because, they couldn't go places. And I think last year we did about 50 events, 50 virtual events, so that we could elevate and keep the market credibility going for our clients. And one of those events, we had over 12,500 people watch live. Now, I cannot even imagine that even at a conference. So, and I serve on multiple boards. So in one of the boards that I'm on, the minute we all shut down, we couldn't go anywhere, within 72 hours, we started a virtual event. We called it Tea with Witty, and it's still going every week. And then we now do Wind Down with Witty, and it's amazing to see that. Like last week, for example, I host a Thursday evening one, so you guys are all welcome to join. It's at 8:00. But we had people from Europe, from India, from California, from all across the country. So I feel that it really connected us more. And I wouldn't be talking to you guys. I mean, this is another example, right? We connected in the digital world. And I've also seen that companies that were quick to pivot, they're still there. They're still doing, going strong. And I don't see us slowing down. I think the virtual world will remain, and we just need to continue to find new ways to leverage this opportunity and connect more with amazing people like you guys.
Thank you, Parna. So maybe you can put in the chat some of the links to these events that you spoke about so that we can all attend. And I'd like to know how you got over 2,000 people to come to your event.
I know, 12,500.
12,000. How did you get that many people to come? Everyone wants to know. I mean, we all want to know. Brad wants to know.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things we do is partner with various organizations, media partners. Okay. And this was for one of my clients. We partnered with a media company called SiliconANGLE. And it's we created a 90-minute session around innovation for good. So I think it's a combination of who you partner, the solid promotion, but most importantly, the content and the kind of people that you bring to the table. And that's one of the things that we've been doing a lot of since COVID.
Wow. Innovation for Good. There's a company called that I am the acting CEO of now, and it's really bringing technology to solving the problem of human trafficking.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we still have time, and I would like to have each of you give 3 pearls of wisdom to the startups who presented here today, as it pertains to where you're at in that cycle of startups. Parna, you can go first.
My apology, Carrie. I missed the question.
We have a lot of startups here today. This is why this event takes place every year. And I wanted you to address them with 3 pearls of wisdom as it pertains to your position in this startup world.
Sure. So the first thing I would say is keep it simple. Keep it simple and show the value of what you do. Because if it's a technology, for example, oftentimes people will talk about the speeds and fees of the product. Nobody cares. The VCs probably will not care. I mean, you guys can tell me that. But really focus on the impact of your services or your company. I think that's the key. The second I would say is build your credibility by showing your expertise. And when I say that, it's not, hey, look at how many patents I have or how good I am in my job, but really using your skills and expertise to help others, share insights, connect with people. Help them be educational and not salesy is what I'm saying, and network. That I would say is the biggest piece, because you never know who you're going to meet and how they may be able to connect you with somebody else, or maybe even fund you or help you with whatever you're looking for. So I would say those are my 3.
Those are really very good ones. And I agree that those should be practiced on a daily basis, probably. Namrata, how about you? You work with an accelerator. You're all about startups. You're in the Venture Bridge. So investing and building companies, really. So
yeah. My big thing is I request everyone all the time to just stay focused. It's a noisy world out there. You're supposed to be doing 10,000 things, and then you have one person on the team. If you're lucky, you have two people on your team. But most people do not have folks working for them, right? You're just starting out. I would just always remind, please just focus. And when I say focus, you think of it like focus on the product and focus on the consumers. And just if you think deeply about just that connection, who is going to pay for this product and why? If you can, to her point, right? If you can keep it very simple and explain to yourself and anyone that you're talking to why this exists, I'm telling you, there's no doubt that you'll be able to convince the investors. So focus is first. Second is figure out the kind of money you need. Please do not be pitching to venture investors if your business is not a venture-friendly business. But by that, I mean venture capital, it's the fiduciary duty of these funds to return capital at a certain percentage to their LPs. Therefore, they invest in high-growth businesses. So if you go pitch to a VC and your business is not that high growth, you're going to come back disappointed. It's going to be just very sad for you. So I always request folks to figure out the kind of capital you need. And third, think long term. Start with, like I said, first point, focus. Start with some customers that are going to pay for your product. But then figure out where you're going with this. And if it's not working, I would say, stop. It's extremely sad. I have shut down startups. It's extremely sad. I still have PTSD from it. But knowing what I know and knowing that you're putting your life on hold for the startup, if it's not working out, just stop. So that's what I would say. And I know, I'm in awe that all of you founders out there are doing it. It's extremely hard. I'm inspired by you.
Thanks, Namrata. I agree. It's like having a bad job. Just quit it. Don't continue to do it. Life is short. So Vandana, how about your 3 pearls of wisdom?
I think, just like the law of gravity, there is something called the law of attraction that always is working for us. And it's very important that we must stay positive. A positive mind helps us make the right decisions and helps us, make the wise decision. So I always recommend all startups to read the book, The Power of the Subconscious Mind. Be fearless, be bold, believe in yourself, believe in the hard work. And, I strongly believe that, you know, uh, there is some almighty power that is working towards the universe is always helping us connect with the right people. Do read the book, The Power of the Subconscious Mind. Do your yogas in the morning, do your exercises, eat the right kind of food. A healthy mind and a healthy body is very important, because health is, wealth also. So it will only help you to make the right decision. So these are my some of the tips that I always give to all entrepreneurs. Apart from this, like I said before, have the right kind of people on your board. Take suggestions. If you have an idea, show the business plan to somebody. Be humble enough to pivot it. Don't use words like hope or want. Just do it and believe in yourself.
All right, we lost Olivia, so I want to talk about there's a lot of investors that do industry investment. So, but they also do gender investing. And what do you think we could do to change that in our space? Like, we're all in different kind of areas. I'm in exclusively startups for the most part. Vandana's in investment. Yes.
Carrie, we're going to need to bring this to a close fairly soon. We're about a half hour behind time.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Well, I want to thank my panel then. Olivia first, who's no longer with us. Parna, thank you for all your wisdom and the marketing expertise and everything. That's invaluable, I think. Namrata, you're like the queen of accelerators to me. Vandana, you've been all over the place and in the investment world. So you guys are experts in my mind, and I've engaged with all of you on some level at some point, and I'll be working more closely, I think, with Parna. So I guess that's a wrap for now. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this session.